Hello. Hello. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. Those who know me well know my least favorite place to be is right up here. So when you see me getting nervous, I need you just to start, we're gonna pretend like we're in church. You just, do a little shout out for me. All right? Okay. Okay. So thank you all for being here and joining us for this courageous conversation on housing and income inequality. This year, we are excited to be offering this event both in person and virtually. We would like to begin this event with a tribal land acknowledgement because we believe it's important to acknowledge that the YWCA Spokane resides on the traditional homelands of the Spokane people and other indigenous people who are connected to this region. We wish to recognize the indigenous peoples who have been dispossessed and displaced for their ancestral and spiritual homes and the taking of their land through colonization. We recognize that land acknowledgement is only a first step towards honoring the contributions of Native Americans and indigenous peoples today, and continue to strive towards policies and practices that bring about justice and reconciliation. We respect and honor the first people of this land, past and present, on which we advocate, work, and live. All right, thank you. So next, we are joined this evening by Dr. Margot Hill. Dr. Hill is a Spokane tribal member and grew up on the Spokane Indian Reservation. She serves as the Associate Director of Small, Urban, Rural, and Tribal Center on Mobility and is an Associate Professor at Eastern Washington University. We are honored to have Dr. Hill joining us today to lead a blessing.
Heo putisin kasihu, putisin kweli, putis liklacht, Louis Quest, Tsipani, Margot Hill. Welcome and good evening, everybody. Thank you so much. I welcome you to Skhet, to the land, the place of the fast-moving water. That is the Spokane name for Spokane. It is the place of fast-moving water. I welcome all of our visitors, our friends. It is good to see all of you, and my heart is happy. Let's stand for a blessing before I share a few words. Chawish, let us pray. Kulansutent kastuli hlucht maskat, tusen intwet. What huikult kwa squally. Lamlams kulansutent tmok hlut, et klo intwet. Creator, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for our land, and we thank you for our sky, for our heavens. We thank you for our animal people. And as it is springtime and the time of the buttercups, we thank you for the snow on the mountains that melts and becomes the river water that nourishes our land and our people. Creator, we thank you for these things. We thank you for our animal people. We pray for our young children, and our old people. Creator, we just ask that our leaders have good hearts. We thank you for this day, and we thank you for everybody here that has come to this building. Thank you, Creator. I was asked to share a few words. You can go ahead and be seated. In just sharing just a little bit about our tribal culture, the city of Spokane is the homelands of the Spokane, the Spokane. And we lived here and thrived here. Our river was filled with salmon. And the river was a beautiful, magnificent resource. Salmon were 80 pounds, Chinook, spring Chinook. And it was such an abundant resource. We invited all of our other tribes to come and fish and camp with us. And we shared all that we had. It wasn't until the 1800s and the 1857 when the United States Army came in to dispossess us of our lands. They bombed our villages. They attacked our people. They even attacked our horses Out in Spokane Valley, 900 head of our horses were killed. They didn't want to waste the bullets, so they began to club the horses and spill them into the river, put them into the Spokane River until the river ran red with the blood of our horses. We didn't ask for people to come and invade our lands. We didn't ask to be moved 48 miles northwest to be put on a reservation. If you look at indigenous people and people of color, we've had enough of the shuns, the reservation, assimilation, relocation. We didn't ask for this. Tonight we have the privilege of talking about housing, and Terry's going to visit with us a little bit about it. But when we look at people of color, our Native American men and women served in the United States military per capita more than any other race. Our African American men and women served the United States military, and they weren't offered the VA home loans that builds wealth for generations. Same with our Latino relatives. They serve in the United States military, and they weren't asked and offered, rushed to be the homeowner. Out in our reservation community, our lands are held in trust by the United States government. I can't even own my own land. The title is held by the United States government for the benefit of Margot Hill. That's why my family lives in a trailer house that was put there in 1974 because banks don't rush out to loan us money for our housing. We cannot build wealth in this country when we're not allowed the same home loans that other folks are. We did not ask to be denied housing. My grandmother, who was so smart, she spoke 3 different Salish dialects. She was an interpreter for chiefs. When she moved to the city of Spokane, she was married to a non-Indian, and they were purchasing a home. She worked at the Davenport Hotel because in those times, our women could be waitresses or they could be maids. Her brother went to Portland State University on scholarship. A non-native teacher got him a scholarship. But my grandmother was relegated to being a waitress or a maid. When she went to buy a home, her brown brothers moved her in. The neighbors flipped out, called the owner, and they canceled the sale. Our people do not have the same opportunity for housing. And Terry's going to talk to us. We didn't ask for redlining. We didn't ask for our communities to be denied home ownership. When we think about environmental racism, we didn't ask for mining companies to pollute uranium on the Spokane Indian Reservation. We didn't ask for companies to pollute the Spokane River. NPDES permits, that still happens today. We didn't ask for that. When we think of our African American sisters and brothers, they didn't ask for people to come to their villages and kidnap their people and bring them here in chains and forced labor. Our Latino brothers and sisters did not ask for lines to be drawn and all of a sudden indigenous people, then they're the immigrants. Asian women did not ask to be a fetish, to be human trafficked. They did not ask for that. As American Indians, we did not ask for us to have an epidemic of murdered, missing indigenous women. But the Supreme Court ruled in Oliphant that we did not have criminal jurisdiction over non-Indians. So it leaves us susceptible to human trafficking and these violations that happen in our communities. We didn't ask for drugs and things to come to our reservation. Here in Spokane, we know it's our African American brothers and our indigenous men that are arrested, and we get higher bail amounts, and we didn't ask to be shot in the back. And like RBG said, for our women, we have to work harder to negotiate our wages. And all we ask is get your foot off our neck. So I just finished, and I want to tell you, we didn't ask for those things. But today, what we're going to do, we are going to raise our sons to have respect for women. That's right. We are going to be clean and sober in our communities. We are going to educate our children and make sure they can go to college. We are going to make sure that they have good credit and buy homes. We are going to be homeowners. So there's so many things that we didn't ask for, but we are going to negotiate our wages. We are going to promote each other as people of color. We're going to hold up our sisters and support each other. We're not going to tear each other down. That's right. We are here tonight. We are standing against racism. We are all one people. No matter what color we are going to stand against racism. Lemlemsh, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. You know, as she was speaking, what was sitting with me is how resilient we are. But my next step to that is thank you all for being here so we can create systems that we don't need to be resilient from. So I'm going to take a moment to shift a little bit. I want to thank our sponsors. So we'd like to take a moment to say thank you to Providence as our mission partner and event sponsor, as well as Health and Justice Recovery Alliance, our video sponsor, without whom this event would not be possible. We are deeply grateful for our partnering organizations, the Women's Club of Spokane, JD Sound and Audio, B&B Pro Video, Tay's Kitchen and Catering, and A to Z Interpreting for supporting the success of this community event. We also want to thank the YWCA's Spokane's Racial and Social Justice Committee, who have been working on this event tirelessly. A special thank you to our panelists, our moderator. I'm thanking myself. Our host, and all of our participants for taking the time to be a part of this courageous conversation. So during our time together, please tend to your own needs and practice self-care. Feel free to step away at any time to grab water, snacks, or the restroom. Next, we're going to shift to our local artists. So we are very excited to celebrate 3 amazing local artists with you tonight. These talented individuals will be entertaining you through a range of styles, including spoken word and song. Please note, some performances include content that may be sensitive in nature and is a reflection of each artist's own expressions. So let me introduce our artists. So we have Latrice Williams. If you haven't seen Latrice perform, you've missed out, but you're in luck. We have her tonight. She wears many hats. She also is an intervention specialist for Spokane School District, and she runs her own realty company, Williams Homegirl Sales. So thank you for taking time out to come perform with us tonight. We have Alethea Dumas. Alethea serves as Equity Project Manager for Better Health Together and is a member of our Racial and Social Justice Committee. In addition to the amazing work they do in the community, Alethea Dumas is also a talented singer who is going to grace us with her stunning voice. Also, we have Chantel Jackson. So tonight we'll be graced with beautiful poetry of Chantel, our spoken word artist tonight. Chantel is an artist in multiple mediums, notably having worked on the BLM mural in downtown. Her visual arts, music, and poetry all highlight different aspects of her artistry and passion. I just want to say throw out a little comment about the mural downtown. So during that time frame, as we know, all of the unrest that was happening, there was a time for me personally where I had decided that everything was over, the world was over. Anybody that I loved was going to die, not at their own fault. Working for the school district, understanding all of the effects that the pandemic were having on our community and our children. When we went back into the office, I was taking a little walk, because as I was carrying all of this, it was really rough. And I feel so fortunate that that mural is one building over from where my office is, and I want to tell you, you gave me life. Thank you. Right. Okay. So with that, our first performer is Latrice. Oh, excuse me. Come on, Alethea.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for being here. I'm going to be singing a song called Black Rage by Lauryn Hill. And I just ask that you just sit with the words as I sing this. So. Black rage is founded on 2/3 a person, rapings and beatings and suffering the worsens. Black human packages tied up in strings. Black rage can come from all these kinds of things. Black rage is founded on blatant denial and squeezed economics, substance survival, deafening silence and social control. Black rage is founded on wounds in the soul. When the dogs bite, when the beatings, when I'm feeling sad, I simply remember all these kinds of things, and then I don't fear so bad. Black rage is founded, who fed us self-hatred, lies and abuse while we waited and waited. Spiritual trees in this grid and its cages. Black rage is founded on these kinds of things. Black rage is founded on draining and draining, threatening your freedom to stop your complaining, poisoning your water while they say it's raining, then call you mad for complaining. Old-time bureaucracy, drugging the youth. Black rage is founded on blacking the truth, murdering crime, compromise and distortion. Sacrifice, who makes this fortune? Greed falsely called progress, such human contortion. Black rage is founded on these kinds of things. So when the dog bites, when the beatings, when I'm feeling sad, I simply remember all these kinds of things, and then I don't fear so bad. Free enterprise is this myth or illusion, forcing you back into purpose confusion. Black human trafficking or blood transfusion. Black rage is founded on these kinds of things. victims of violence, both psyche and body. Life out of context is living ungodly. Politics, politics, greed falsely called wealth. Black rage is founded on denial of self. So when the dogs bite, when the beatings, when I'm feeling sad, I simply remember all these kinds of things, and then I don't feel so bad. So bad.
For those who can't see, it says black while passing through white land. Southern trees bear strange fruits, blood on the leaves and blood at the root. Black bodies swinging in the southern breeze. Strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Pastoral scene of a gallant south. The bulging eyes and the twisted mouth. Scent of magnolias, sweet and fresh. Then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here's a fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rot, for the trees to dry. Here is a strange
Hello, everyone. This poem that I'm going to read is called Little Lives. I don't think I quite understood that little black boys and girls are not boys and girls at all when I learned 2 men kidnapped, beat, mutilated, shot, and drowned a 14-year-old kid, and furthermore were acquitted of all charges. He would be 80 today. I still couldn't wrap my brain around the concept that little black boys were expected to act and think and behave with the reasoning of adults. No, didn't quite get it when I heard the story of an overzealous neighborhood watch person follow and investigate a suspicious person, a 17-year-old who was doing nothing other than walking home from the corner store. He was pursued. He fought back. He was a child. He shouldn't have had to fight back. He was ultimately shot and killed. He today would be 27 years old. A 19-year-old seeking assistance after a car crash, shot and killed because shoot first, ask questions later, seek forgiveness, claim accidents. She would have been 28 today. No, still missing the mark when I heard of a teen who killed 4 people while driving drunk. There was concession for this teen, affluenza. Affluenza is an actual diagnosis. He was too rich to understand the consequences of his actions. No, not for young black children. No, still didn't quite understand that innocent, small, yet large lives were expected to stay in the margins when I heard of an adult pull out a gun in a gas station, shoot into a car of black teens because the music was just too loud. Today, that young man would have been 27. It wasn't until I saw the footage of 2 officers pull up onto the grass and within seconds shoot a 12-year-old child. This child who was playing with a toy gun. He would have been 19 today. Long sighs turn to long cries. Their names fall off my lips like tears fall from the faces of mothers, fathers, and communities. This list is not exhaustive. This list is extensive. I don't use their names to tell the story of a nation that habitually exterminates, shrugs its shoulders while hiding behind laws and expected behavior. I have no words to articulate what I felt time and again. Little black boys and girls are not children, but men and women. Little lives expected to react and respond with the coherence and clarity of an adult. Little lives that cannot catcall white women or else they will be severely beaten and drowned. Little lives that cannot just walk home from corner stores and in their death defend why they were walking home from a corner store. Little lives that cannot play with toy guns because they could end up in front of real guns. Little lives that cannot play loud music so not to disrupt fragility. Little lives that become headlines and hashtags. Little lives that are taken too soon, leaving parents to bury their precious, unique lives. Children, little lives, just children. While the country wars about what lives matter more, which no one cared about what lives matter till Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
So with all that, we just want to say that there's a change that's coming, and it's with this generation.
I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die, 'cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. Oh, yes it will. See, I go to the movies and I go downtown. Somebody keeps telling me, don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. Oh, yes it will. Then I go to my brother. Yeah. And I said, brother, help me please. No. Then he winds up knocking me. Back down on my knees. Whoa. There were times when I thought I wouldn't last for too long. Now I see I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. Oh, yes it will. Yeah. Then I go to my brother. Oh, and I said, brother,
You are the change. You are the change. A change gon' come. You are the change. You are the change. You are the change. You are the change.
I'm not by yourself, girl.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so tonight's discussion is going to include 3 sections: defining the problem, outlining potential solutions, and then answering some of the questions you have submitted. For our virtual audience, as questions come up for you, please enter them into the comment box at the bottom of your screen so that we can answer as many of them as possible. Please feel free to utilize the comment feature to throw out other thoughts and observations you may have and communicate with your fellow virtual attendees. We know that home ownership is often a key factor in building wealth. In Spokane, racially restrictive language still exists on housing deeds in some neighborhoods. According to Spokane Community Against Racism, in Spokane, 70% of Black and brown residents are renters, while 70% of whites are homeowners. Historical practices like denying loans based on a practice of grading neighborhoods have led to residential segregation that can still be felt today. When we look at the demographics of our city, we can see strong contrasts between our poorest and wealthiest neighborhoods. We have a housing crisis. Not only do we have low vacancy, with only 1 apartment unit out of every 167 is vacant, as reported in the Inlander, but if you're looking to buy a home or condo, the median closing price rose over $89,000 in 1 year. According to the Spokane Association of Realtors, the median closing price for a house or condo on less than 1 acre of land is now $429,998 in March. So now we're going to hear from experts in the field of housing and economic justice who will help us grasp this issue and how it is affecting communities here in Spokane. So I'm going to introduce Chauncey as our moderator. I'm pleased to introduce him. He's very important in our community. He, along with his cousin, Jerry Jones, founded A Better Way, JJJ, a real estate development company that focuses on affordable housing and home ownership. Chauncey also works as the Community Engagement Board Liaison for Spokane Public Schools, where he assists with connecting families to district and community services to promote active participation of families in the education of their children. Let's welcome Chauncey.
It's coming. Okay, there we go. How y'all doing? So before I introduce the esteemed panelists, can everyone just stand up one time? Everyone just stand up, and please give it up for yourselves, because tonight we are standing against racism. Yeah. So, all right, y'all. All right, we good. Hey, y'all clap for yourself. Y'all can sit back down now. So now I'm going to introduce the panelists. Terry Anderson and Stephanie Courtney, please come on up and join me. Yeah, give it up like y'all gave it up for yourselves now. So, sound man, are we passing the mic back and forth? Is that the? Oh, okay. The wired or the wireless? Wired? Wired, I got you. Let's do this. Hold on just a second, y'all. So since you got that mic, you can introduce yourself first.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. My name is Stephanie Courtney, and thank y'all. I love these people in here right now because we're doing something really phenomenal. My name is Stephanie Courtney, and I am with the Learning Project Network, where we focus on shining light on problems through project-based learning for adults, for us to actually figure out ways that we can combat against some of the crises that are impacting our communities at so many deep levels. Right now, we're putting a big focus on Black maternal health and looking at how can we crush the crisis in our community as well as other communities throughout the United States. Thank you so much, and I will pass the mic.
She got one. We good?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I was prepared, y'all. I was prepared. Sharing is caring.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all, and thank you for inviting me. And actually, I could have stayed sitting there and listened to the music and the entertainment all night.
Amen to that.
Sat right there. But I thank you so much because this is really an important conversation that we're having. My name's Terry Anderson. I'm the director of the Spokane office for the Tenants Union of Washington State. The Tenants Union has been around in Washington since 1977. We will be celebrating our 45th birthday. We're going to have a big party in September, and you are all invited.
Give it up. There we go.
It'll be a rooftop party at the Saranac. But we've been in Spokane since 2013, which is kind of a significant year because that's really about the time that rents started to rise and we started to see the crisis starting to form. When the Tenants Union started our office here in Spokane, we started on a HUD grant for housing preservation because we are seeing HUD Section 8 project-based housing being converted into market rate housing, and tenants in those buildings have a right to organize and be made aware of their circumstances. And we've had several. We've had conversions in Spokane, and we're very worried that those will continue to happen. But after we were here for just 1 year, word got out there was a tenants union office, and we were just inundated with phone calls from tenants that were having issues with landlords. And it became very clear we needed an office in Spokane. So we have a permanent office in Spokane. We've been here since 2013. We operate they were walk-in clinics, but now they're remotely operated. We have 4 walk-in tenant clinics, and we have a statewide tenant hotline. We are right now switching to a new phone system, so you're going to probably hear notices from me where you can call into the state hotline and talk to us directly. It will give you more access and more hours and more availability. We also conduct workshops and pop-up clinics and all kinds of things to keep tenants educated. I'm going to probably talk a lot about the disparities of housing in Spokane, but they've just gotten worse since I've gotten here. And we are really in need of tenant protections, and that's what I want to talk about today on how we can all get involved in moving the city forward. And yes, change is coming, and we need change to move forward so we can have housing justice in the city of Spokane. 70% renters in BIPOC communities as opposed to 30% renters in white households means that you can't get evicted unless you're a renter. So just looking at those numbers, we know who is at risk of becoming homeless, and that's why we need to address these issues. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great job. So, Terry, we're going to, just to that point where you brought up, one of the questions that come to mind is, how do historically oppressive practices and policies continue to have an impact in Spokane today? Your thoughts?
Well, you already talked about them in the introduction, Margot. I think it starts with the Spokane tribe, who were forcibly removed from this area. That began our history of displacing people. And for those who don't know, that there is no treaty. This was done by executive order, and the tribe was forcibly removed from the city of Spokane. So we are now standing on occupied land and unceded land that belongs to the Spokane tribal people. And I think that sets the tone of our history. So immediately when after the tribes were displaced, there were no housing policies. And again, talking about redlining, as the city got big and neighborhoods began to form, banks decided where they would loan money, which neighborhoods were at higher risk, and that's what we see today. And today we don't call it redlining, what we call it is single-family zoning. And Spokane, about 75% of the city is single-family zoning, and that is that was caused historically prior to the passage of the Fair Housing Act of 1968. Which I would like to mention that April is the Fair Housing Act month, and we want to acknowledge the Fair Housing Act, which I call the most unfulfilled of the civil rights acts by the federal government, and we need to make sure that that law is actually enforced and that it does what it's meant to do, and we're working on it. So I think that not a whole lot has really changed. And I've also said the same thing about you could put an overlay on the white housing covenants that occurred in the city in those neighborhoods. And the Spokane Regional Health District about 10 years ago maybe did a health study where they did neighborhood by neighborhood, the life expectancy. You can literally see a 20-year lifespan difference in the neighborhoods that had the white-only housing covenants and the redlining neighborhoods. 20 years. So we feel it in our lives when we don't get to see our grandmas and grandpas. So that is the legacy of our history of housing discrimination, and it still occurs today.
Thank you for that, Terry. Stephanie, now to you. What does the term housing community mean to you, and how would you describe the current situation?
So I'm going to answer this kind of inward and outward. Just recently, I had a baby about 11 months ago, and I was so excited to get her involved with something because I was at home. She's a pandemic baby. And we went into a beautiful neighborhood where we were it's called Songbird. I'm gonna give a shout out to them. And it's a small little building where children can come and they can sing with other kids. There's music classes there. There is a coffee shop. There's a music little store there. One of the things that came to mind, I thought I was lost before I found this place, and what I realized is the community spoke to what they felt was important. And I think when we're talking about housing, we think about the four walls people live in, but we also need to have the conversation, what is the community that the housing is placed in is saying about the importance and the existence of people who are having children and the children who are being birthed into the community. And so when we saw this and I had this experience, I was literally in shock when I got here because it was so beautiful, it was so powerful. The statement was made by the community and how the community was grown, how it was embracing the families that were in the community. And so I think we have to go back and ask the question, yes, housing is an issue, it's a crisis, it's a message that needs to be heard, but once we put these houses in the community, are we looking at clean water? Are we looking at places where people can get nutritious foods? Are we looking at education for families to grow and be strong? And then also, are we looking at how we are helping them to build that financial wealth within these communities? And so that's kind of a roundabout answer, but it's an answer that I think we have to start thinking about not just the paper of the policies, but the people who live in the communities, and how are we helping them to grow and break the generational cycles that continue to perpetuate.
I like that. Yeah, y'all can give it up. Yeah, we can do that. So I think we're going to move on to the next portion, which is the exploring the solutions, right? Because now that we framed the localized the inequalities that we've seen, we want to talk about where we go next, right? So this portion also includes some great questions that were submitted online from community members. And if you are joining us virtually, we want to encourage you to continue submitting your questions. Go and get those questions in so that we can have this interaction and conversation. So the first one I have is, and Terry, you can answer this. Are there examples of programs and policies that already exist to combat these issues?
In Spokane?
Yeah.
Sorry. You know, we have a lot, we do have wonderful service providers in the city of Spokane. Catholic Charities, SNAP, VOA, Salvation Army, all of our nonprofit partners do a good job in providing service for the city, but service isn't enough. I mean, it's hard in Spokane. I think the political climate, the culture, the history have placed so many barriers for folks, and that really, really came out that we noticed in these 2 years of COVID. So, when you look at other cities and how they have been able to move forward with more progressive policies, it's because tenants are able to speak out and be vocal. The imbalance of power in Spokane makes it so tenants don't speak out. They're too afraid to speak out. The conditions of housing, and we've heard them already today, a vacancy rate of about 0. And so who wants to rock the boat with your landlord if the result might be that you're going to get a notice that you're going to have to move? And when there's no place to move to, any kind of a notice is a notice basically that you could be homeless in any number of days, as soon as 60, 30 in some cases. So I wouldn't say that there's a lot of programs in Spokane. That there are. Northwest Justice Project is a legal firm. We do have right to counsel for all the state of Washington, so that happens in Spokane. But I think the Tenants Union really is the only organization that puts tenants' voices in the lead. We believe that renters are the experts, which is what you're talking about. Like when we define a community, I think the people that live in the community can define the community, and we see developers or other people that build housing, and we just need a place where it's a chicken and the egg thing in Spokane. If we had some protections, then tenants would feel protected to speak out. But when there's no protections, they don't speak out, and the only way you can get a protection is to have voices heard. So that's why we're here, so that people that aren't just renters that are impacted, that are getting evicted, but that everybody in the city of Spokane sees that we're all a vital part of the city, and that we all need to speak up on behalf of our neighbors. And I think that might be the only way we can do it. So yes, the answer is yes, it's here because we are here, and we have voices, and we can make that change.
Yeah, I like that. By the way, shameless plug, A Better Way is another one of those organizations that is impacting and does hear the voice of the tenants and working it. I threw you that alley-oop. Come on, Terry. You're supposed to go with that. So along the lines of that, Stephanie, what can community members do to get involved in creating more equity in their workplace and neighborhoods?
I do a lot of work around doulas. I have a podcast series called Girl Get a Doula, and it talks about support systems from the very beginning. We are not taking...
Hold up. You got to act like there's some people in here who might not know what a doula is. So, what is a doula?
So thank you. So a doula is an individual that can support you along your journey, whether you have a miscarriage, if you go full term, if you go through death, if you choose to have an abortion, whatever it may be that you're going through, adoption, being a single father, if you have any mental health issues, this person comes alongside with you in your journey and makes it personal and individual. And I think that's one of the big pieces that we need to start talking about is from the very beginning of conception of life, are we providing spaces that will prepare a person to go through transition in their life with support? there's two things that I constantly talk about is a lot of times we focus so much on service that we don't put enough focus on culture. When we are looking at how people support one another from the very beginning of a child's life or a mother's life, because they're giving life and they're making change in their own personal life or a birthing person's life, it is important for us to make sure that our community and the small individual communities are prepared for that change and that transition. And that's why I keep saying, like, we have to talk more about just the house. That's not enough just to talk about the home. We have to talk about what is the culture of the community and how are we really coming together to ensure that people have just the basic needs of coming into the world. When we look at a birth plan, one of the questions should be for a person that's having a baby is, do you have do you have a stable home? Do you have support within that home? We don't talk about when did the breakdown happen, maybe someone having mental health issues or financial issues when they have a major transition such as having a child. There's a lot of things that happen mentally for an individual, and we're not talking about it. We just want to act like you have a baby and you go on with your life. But we're not talking about depression, anxiety, postpartum issues. When these issues come up, we want to put a Band-Aid on them or we want to ignore them. And so for me, when we're talking about solutions, we have to go back to the very beginning and ask ourselves, if that single dad comes in and wants some help or needs some help from the very beginning, how are we supporting them, not just through services, but is it our culture to say that support is the number one topic? It is the number one place that our community, our city is valuing and putting their money and creating opportunities for people to be creative, to be the change. You know, if people have ideas and want to implement things, how easy is this easy for people to do? Do you have to know someone in order to make that change or to access that funding? Or are you just a person, like maybe you have an idea and you can do it one or two times and it works, but we're never gonna know because we're not being an innovative community. We may be more of a service-based community. We know how to serve each other, but we don't know how to create a culture of change and innovation for the next generation.
Got you. Give it up. Yeah.
And that can also be done through creative use of housing trust money. We have a state housing trust fund, and we just recently created the city of Spokane has a housing trust fund. I think that we do not see multi-generational, culturally based housing in Spokane. What we see in Spokane is housing that's been created by developers for profit. We need to look more at housing that is created for community and for the people to do the things that Stephanie just talked about. And I think that's doable. But again, it takes our collective voices because even though there's hardly any developers compared to all of us that live in housing that's developed by them, they have way more power than the rest of us. So we have to collectively use our voices and say we need housing that is going to provide the support and the culture in our community to strengthen us. So I love what you're saying.
I just have to bounce something off really quick because that was so good. So just recently I did a Black maternal health exhibit and we highlighted the House Bill 1881, which provides doulas to be covered under Medicaid. And a lot of people don't know this. And what we did was meaning me and my baby, because I don't have no employees yet, so I'd be saying we, but it's just me and my baby. But what we did was I had people submit images of their birth journey, and we blew them up and we put them at a winery where people came to talk about birth, education, the historical pieces of Black birth. Why is there so much mistrust? And so many people, a handful of people I felt like just really embraced this mission. But it made me realize a lot of people don't know like what is out there. So I think that's a big piece too that we have to do. We have to get creative in actually educating our community about things like what you're talking about, because somebody may not actually read something and retain it, but maybe they'll come to an event where there is song, there are images, there are art exhibits that are talking about the issues and giving people that sight, that seeing, that touch, so that it can become a real thing for them and understand that these different movements are in place and they're accessible to the community. So I love what you said, and I didn't even know about that, but I just wanted to put that out there to somebody that may be thinking about how do we educate our community better so that they can actually be better equipped to make decisions, request change, and implement the change and access the care or the resources that are out there.
Thank you for that. Yeah. All right, now we got questions from participants. So we got some participants that have been sending great questions. You got to submit your final questions now so we can get some of these answered. Are you gonna bring them to me? Appreciate you. Yeah, I'm comfortable in my chair. Hold on, you.
Go ahead and bring any questions that you're writing on your little note card up here so that we can answer them. Well, that they can answer them.
And I also did hand out, I have some, it's got tenants union on the top. We have been working with the city for years to get some tenant protections passed. It started about 7 years ago, and our favorite city council member, Kate Burke, started it with a tenant town hall, I think about 2 weeks after she took office. She was the first renter that was elected to city council for a number of years and took that on as her issue. The tenant town hall started a conversation, but landlords got involved and were very vocal, extremely abusive to tenants at some public forums that the city had. I mean, it was all a learning thing, and I think we learned that we probably shouldn't have a joint forum with landlords and tenants together because it was extremely intimidating for the tenants. The landlords were, it was horrible. I just can't tell you how horrible it was. It was like the most horrible experience I've ever. If you ever have how not to create housing justice, the city of Spokane could use that as an example. Literally, landlords called the police on the tenants, and then when the police got there, the tenants threw the landlords out. So it was just horrible. I can't even tell you how horrible it was. So then they followed up with another series of forums that were not quite as horrible, but kind of. And then now we've just gone through a third series of forums with landlords and tenants. And I would like you all to know, if you can do anything at all, call city council and tell them, get these ordinances passed. We can't just keep having forum after forum after forum. It isn't getting anywhere. So there are some suggestions, and one of the things, after listening to Stephanie, that we have been asking and have been told that some of our requests aren't that challenging, so I don't know why they're not doing them, but one of them will really illustrate how connected our housing is with our democracy when we live in a state where we vote by mail. When you are evicted or you are self-evicted because your rent is too high and you can't stay living there any longer, or you're forced to move for any number of reasons, changing your voting registration form just is not the first thing on your mind. Then your ballots then are no longer mailed to you, and then tenants then just kind of drop out of our democratic process. We would like the city of Spokane to pass an ordinance that requires a distribution packet that landlords give tenants upon move-in that includes the rental application, federal, state, and local tenant protections, resources, service providers, names and access to all elected officials, and forms to change your address for your voting and voter registration forms. I'm tired of hearing lawmakers say, renters don't vote. Well, maybe renters don't vote because the situation that we have right now is designed to make sure renters don't vote. And that is something we can do something about. And that should be an easy fix. Make sure we all have a voice in our democracy and that everybody has a say in our policies. And I would imagine that if these things were put to a vote, they would pass. So that's one thing that is a very basic fundamental. But we do have specific policies that we would like the city to enact that we have been calling for 8 years. And what we said 8 years ago was, if you don't enact some of these policies that either, number one, make it harder to evict tenants, make it harder for tenants to be displaced, and make it easier for tenants to move in. If you do those two things, you won't have the homeless problem of people experiencing homeless in Spokane. And it kills me every day to say, I told you so. I don't like being right, but we were absolutely right. If many of those protections were passed, we might not see as many people experiencing homelessness in Spokane right now.
Thank you, Terry. Terry, I'm going to have to hit you with the Kanye. I'm going to let you finish next time. You just grab that mic and freestyle. I'm just... Nah, she has good points, and we love to see the passion, right? Me and Terry go all the way, way back, so it's all love. But I want to ask a question. I'm going to give you guys both a chance to answer it in your abbreviated answer, because we are all here, right, to stand against racism. So Q Biz, I call him Q, asked the question, what are some practical steps we can take to help combat housing inequality? And Stephanie, I'm gonna let you go first.
Okay. I think we need to have the conversation in high school. So I just took on a project to try to reestablish STEP teams in all of the high schools and talk about leadership and movement and culture, and anybody can join the STEP team, but we've been trying to reestablish this. But we know that a part of our crisis is teens, and we don't talk to them. We do not even give them the power to even make change. So they suffer in silence and hope that an adult gets what they're going through and screams so loud that somebody will do something. So we have to be willing to give up some of the authority and the power to people who need us and can make decisions and just need the opportunity to learn, to grow, to make change where they know they can make it. And even just saying, like, the first-time home buyers program, why can't that be in high school? We know that when they buy early, you changing all kinds of stuff. Why aren't we making home buyers programs part of leadership programs such as SWAG or even the NAACP? They have a ton of different programs they're trying to develop and grow. Why are we not doing that? Because that's practical, and that possibly would crush the crisis, which would in return mess up a whole bunch of other people's pockets and money. Let's just talk about it. If we really want to do something about it, let's put our money where our mouth is. When we look at the history of America, it was teenagers that were making all kinds of movements and changes, getting married, having babies. Now, if they were doing that back in the day and they had some kind of form or way of trying to, and I'm not saying do that, y'all, don't go out, I'm not saying that. My mom brain just kicked in and I was like, wait a minute, Stephanie. That's not what I'm saying, but you get what I'm trying to say, which is let's get kids, teens involved early and let them know that they can make a difference, they can make a change, and they have some say in the country that they live in, period, you know? Yep. So for me, that's the solution for me. I love the teens that I work with. Yeah, I love the teens that I work with, and they always look at the adults and they're like, what is wrong with them? So maybe if we give the power to somebody else or some of it, maybe we would stop all this fussing and fighting. about stuff that don't make any sense. So
Give it to the youth. Terry, before I let you answer, I'm going to give another shameless plug to my family at the Department of Family and Community Engagement. For those of you who don't know that we exist within the schools that are doing the work, 248. Look us up. As my kids will say, Google us. We putting in the work. Terry, you want to answer that as well?
Practical, talk to your neighbors.
There you go.
Talk to your neighbors. If you live in a building, think about forming a tenants association. If you want to form a tenants association and you don't know how to, call the tenants union. We will provide technical assistance. Up until just last year, we were not helping tenants with tenants associations because we did not have just cause eviction in the state of Washington. Now, for those of you who don't know, just cause eviction means that you have to have a reason to evict somebody. Until Washington passed the most recent just cause law 2 years ago, tenants in Spokane could get evicted for no reason whatsoever except for the landlord gives them a 20-day notice. And so tenants obviously were reluctant to form a tenants association. We did not want to put tenants at risk of being served a 20-day notice, so we didn't organize them. Now we have just cause eviction. You cannot get a 20-day notice. No, you no longer can get a 20-day notice in the state of Washington. Yay, Tenants Union did that. And the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance, Dua Rahima. I'm going to put out a big plug for RAP and Washington Low Income Housing Alliance. And we did that together. And now that we have just cause, tenants should start talking to each other. There's new power. You can maybe leverage that power. Now, landlords now, if they want to evict you, they're going to have to hire a lawyer because with the 20-day notice, they didn't hire a lawyer. They gave you the 20-day notice and hoped you just moved out, and most tenants did. Now, landlords have to hire a lawyer. Tenants have a right to counsel. There are more protections. Tenants can leverage their power and collectively bargain with their landlord. The city of San Francisco just passed a law requiring collective bargaining between tenants and landlords. Awesome. We'd love something like that in Spokane. But all of that starts with talking to your neighbors. Talking to your neighbors.
Like that. Combo. I have to clarify something. I gave Q props. You didn't submit the question. They all say Q on the back. It says submitted Q. My bad, y'all. My bad. A question here, and Terry, you can answer it first. I think we got about 7 more minutes, so we got a couple more questions. Y'all gonna have to trim them answers down just a little bit. Are discussions regarding rent control happening with elected officials in Spokane?
Well, they can have the conversation, but the state has a law that preempts cities and counties from establishing any kind of rent control. So any kind of conversations that's happening in the city is, we can't do that. But there are things that the city can do, and that's what we're urging them to do. Currently, under Washington state law, there is no rent control, and there is a preemptive law that prohibits any cities from establishing it. But we have seen cities in Washington extend the notice period for rent increases. There was a bill in the state legislature that extended it to 6 months. We can do that. There are ways that we can have fewer rent increases per year if we have longer notice periods.
I like that. See? Nice job. Nice job. So I'm going to ask you, we went back to what we talked about earlier, and a lot of people did a great job of saying what the face looked like. We got a great history lesson here. But for you, what does the future look like?
I'm hopeful. I think right now Spokane has an opportunity to learn, grow, and be different. And with that being said, it's going to require us to be uncomfortable. It's going to require it for some of us to cry, to be upset, to be confused, to be educated, and to be willing to move forward together. But it's going to require us also to do some self-reflecting. How is our own personal wealth built on the backs of other people? And are we willing to help someone leverage up to the same place that we are. I want to say that, and I do feel hopeful that things will change, but we have to be willing to learn from one another and recognize the things that aren't so loud. I know you said don't make it long, but I just have to say this one last thing.
Come on.
Okay.
You saw the look, but you good.
I know.
You good,
I
sis.
had to say this one thing. So Keonta Duncan just did a short film on a situation that took place here in the community. And in the film, it shows a man having a shotgun in in a young man's face. And I think sometimes when we are talking about racism, we're looking for it to look like that. We're looking for it to be so blatant and so disgusting that we can say, that's racism. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it requires you to stand up and say something, and for you to put your job, your career, your privilege on the line. So I'm hopeful that we will get so many brave people that they won't care about their title, they won't care about their money, because the community and the health of individuals will become their priority. Even for people that don't even maybe deserve that grace or deserve that love or deserve that care. But it means something. You mean something to me, and I mean something to you. So that, I'm just going to say that. I'm going to stop. Hopeful.
I like it.
Hopeful.
Yeah, props.
I'm ready. Hopeful.
The name of that documentary is In His Face.
In His Face.
In His Face by Keonta Duncan. So look for that. Terry, so a question here was kind of a two-part. I'm just going to ask, what do you think the relationship between landlord and tenant should look like? Ooh, I did that.
I would like to see landlords look more like tenants in Spokane. Right now, the racial disparity between landlords and tenants are that landlords are not BIPOC and tenants are. So I would like to see more landlords who look like tenants, and we could have better conversations with landlords. Right now, it is challenging. It is a barrier in many ways. So I would like to see more landlords that look more like the tenants that live in their housing. I also have been saying this, that I think that we need to come to the realization that there are laws that we cannot re-debate. And one of them is the Fair Housing Act of 1968. And it seems to me that many people want to repeal it. It is not going to get repealed. So learn to live with it. And the city of Spokane, HUD requires an analysis of impediments to fair housing. We've been doing those in the city of Spokane except for the last 4 years because the Trump administration eliminated the analysis of impediments to fair housing. They are now back on, because I think that was the first thing that President Biden did, was reestablish that analysis. So when that comes up again, everybody participate in it. Everybody participate in it. The city needs to address those impediments.
Thank you. Y'all give it up for the panelists again. Yeah. There we go. So unfortunately, we don't have any more time to answer questions at this moment, but I want to thank everybody for all the great questions and this great, courageous conversation that we've had up here today that impacts all of us and impacts our community. The team at the YWCA Spokane will be reviewing all your other questions and looking forward to addressing more of them in the months ahead. So please, if you have questions and want to continue the conversation, there are outlets and there are ways that you can. I think it's very important that we do this as a community and be able to tap into the resources that are available, that we know there's things, each one of you have something that you bring to the table that your neighbor next to you might not even know that you bring that could impact this community. So that's what we do. That's how we stand against racism, right? So give it up for the panelists one more time. All right, so I'm gonna give you a chance to do this is it. You get to your closing thoughts. Stephanie, you go first.
I just want to say, stand for those who have been silenced, stand for those that are being born, and stand for those who have given up hope. We have to show up for one another. We have to stop asking people to come into spaces and assimilate to fakeness. We have to ask people to be themselves, to stand in their blackness, to stand in their indigenous, to stand in whatever they are, to stand in and be unapologetic and see the beauty that they bring to a community. And I'm hopeful, and that is all I am going to say for the sake of time. But stand with that person so that we can stand against racism.
Come on, I like it. Give it up, give it up.
Thank you. Well, I have a lot of thoughts.
You gonna stand up for it? You look like you was about to stand. Come on, Terry.
I'm standing up against racism.
There you go.
I am standing up against racism. I'm again, my crystal ball is out, and if we do not close the loophole that was created on the Just Cause law I told you about, in the state legislature put an amendment in that bill that law only applies to tenants who are on a fixed, have a month-to-month rental agreement. Landlords had 3 months, June, July, and August of last year, to convert their month-to-month tenants into fixed-term rentals, and they did that by coercive methods, by rent increases that would double if you stayed month-to-month, and so that coerced people to go into a fixed-term lease, not knowing that at the end of their fixed-term lease, they can be served a no-cause notice, and that loophole has to be closed. That's the number one most important thing, because we're going to see a huge wave of homelessness come July. Well, it'll be like September, October, November, the worst possible times for people to be getting evicted in Spokane. So that has to happen now. And stand together. And there is no shame in being evicted. Let's turn that shame into righteous indignation, because there's no shame when your landlord doesn't keep your house in good condition and raises your rent and you get evicted. There's no shame in that, and that's something that has to change.
Yeah. One more time for our panelists. So I'm about to hand it back over to, you hosted this tremendously, just so on point. So now it's time for action. Hey, y'all keep standing. We gonna keep standing as we get ready to have this call for action. Go ahead, Nicole.
So I changed the plan a little bit, so go ahead and sit down for a minute. If you were on the stage tonight, please come back up. If you were on the stage tonight, please come up. Let's give them a hand as they come back up. So we encourage you to take the pledge to stand against racism, either online at YWCA Spokane.org/SAR pledge, or by signing the banner in person that's in the back. We also encourage you to register for YWCA Spokane's new Stand Against Racism Challenge. The challenge was originally developed by Dr. Eddie Moore, Jr., and co-developed with Debbie Irving and Dr. Marguerite Pennick. The challenge has been adapted by many organizations across the country to help people better understand issues surrounding equity, inclusion, privilege, leadership, and supremacy. So I'm going to end with a poem by Dr. Bernice King. Kindness matters, but kindness does not equal justice. Civility counts, but calling for civility is not the humane response to injustice. Justice is, love is essential, but love is not a passive weeping bystander. Love puts in work. So thank you all for putting in work with us tonight. Thank you for putting in work with us tonight. Lastly, come on up. As we celebrate, so this is a good time to stand. As we celebrate everyone, let's give them a round of applause. Also, with your enthusiasm, I would like you to enthusiastically donate to this event. You can do that at the merch table by buying merch or just donating. When I first became involved with the Y a few years back, Stand Against Racism was an event that I had gone to before, but I didn't know it was an unfunded piece. So we've had generous donations so that we can continue moving forward. So if you got something out of tonight, which I know you did, please show us by donating so we can continue. Thank you. Thank you. Good night.